The neon lights of Harbor City reflected off wet streets like shards of broken glass, casting a dizzying glow on the endless crowd of hurried travelers. People moved fast, their faces set and eyes forward, focused on their own destinations. Among them, barely noticed, a thin figure shuffled along, her steps uneven and slow. She wore tattered robes that dragged against the ground, and her pale, slightly translucent skin glimmered faintly in the neon glow. Most people didn't look at her at all. Those who did saw a homeless alien woman and quickly looked away, shaking their heads or muttering complaints about the city's growing number of drifters. No one could have guessed that this frail, wandering figure carried the weight of a kingdom in her past, or that she was the lost princess of a great empire thought destroyed centuries ago. To everyone else, she was just another shadow in the crowd, invisible and insignificant. Callan, a young engineer, moved against the flow, his backpack bouncing against his shoulder as he navigated the throngs. He was small in stature, wiry and quick, always scanning the bustling streets for opportunity. But something about her caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she moved, careful and deliberate, with a grace that seemed out of place among the stumbling masses. Perhaps it was the quiet dignity in her eyes, or the slight shimmer under her hood that no one else seemed to notice. For reasons he couldn't explain, Callan slowed and let the crowd carry him alongside her. The woman paused at a street corner, eyeing a discarded piece of synthetic bread someone had dropped. She hesitated, then reached out and picked it up, examining it as if it were precious treasure. Callan's curiosity flared. He approached cautiously, careful not to startle her. "Here," he said gently, holding out a small packet of fresh food. "You look hungry." She flinched at the sound of his voice and stepped back, her large, luminescent eyes widening in alarm. Her accent was soft, broken, and melodic, tinged with a foreign cadence. "No, no, thank you," she murmured. Her voice was gentle but cautious, as if she had learned long ago that strangers were dangerous. Callan smiled softly. "I'm not a stranger, just someone who noticed you." He hesitated, unsure if he should continue, but something inside him urged him to try. "I'm Callan." "What's your name?" For a long moment she didn't respond. She seemed to weigh him carefully, studying him with a gaze that could pierce through the chaos around them. Finally she spoke, her voice barely audible over the hum of the city. Aurelia." Callan's brow furrowed. The name was strange, unfamiliar, yet somehow it resonated in his mind. "Aurelia," he repeated softly. "Nice to meet you. Can I help you, even a little?" Aurelia shook her head, pulling her hood further over her face. "No, I am fine," she whispered, though her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her robes. Callan didn't press further. He had learned that persistence without kindness could frighten people, so he simply nodded. "All right. But if you ever need someone, just know I'll be around." He gave her a small smile before turning back into the crowd. Aurelia watched him go, a strange sensation stirring in her chest. Humans were unpredictable, chaotic, and often cruel, but sometimes they were capable of small acts of compassion. In the years since she had fled her destroyed homeworld, she had encountered few who looked at her and saw something more than her tattered robes or the color of her skin. Callan was different, though she did not yet understand why. As the night deepened, the city's underbelly came alive. Neon signs flickered, advertising everything from illegal entertainment to quick fixes for synthetic enhancements. The air smelled of oil, ozone, and something faintly sweet, a mixture of chemicals that seemed to seep into every alley and doorway. Aurelia moved carefully, avoiding the attention of patrolling security drones and street gangs, her every step measured. She had learned long ago to make herself small, to be invisible, to walk through human cities as though she did not exist. Unbeknownst to her, a pair of sharp eyes followed her from the rooftops above. A bounty hunter, clad in black armor that absorbed the neon glow, observed silently. Every move she made was noted, every pause catalogued. The hunter muttered under their breath, speaking into a tiny device strapped to their wrist. "Target acquired. She is the one. The one the galaxy has forgotten, but not I." Aurelia remained oblivious, focused solely on survival. She slipped into a narrow alley where the light barely reached, and the sound of the city dimmed to a soft, distant hum. She paused beside a rusted dumpster, pressing herself against the wall, and allowed herself a brief moment to rest. Her stomach ached, her limbs ached, but her mind was sharp, always alert. Every shadow could hold danger, every passerby could bring death. Callan, meanwhile, had returned to his small workshop above the busy streets. He couldn't shake the image of Aurelia from his mind. Something about her presence lingered, a quiet insistence that made him uneasy. He opened his datapad and began searching through local records, hoping for some clue, anything that might explain why his curiosity had been so deeply piqued. Hours passed as he cross-referenced city reports, missing person files, and historical records of alien refugees. Then he saw it, a faint emblem tucked into the corner of an old holographic portrait, nearly faded from centuries of neglect. It matched the symbol he had glimpsed beneath Aurelia's hood earlier that evening. His heart skipped a beat. The emblem belonged to the Calithian Empire, a civilization that had been destroyed in the Great Galactic War centuries ago. And according to the records, one princess had gone missing, one princess who had never been found. Callan leaned back in his chair, trying to process the revelation. Could it really be true? Could this seemingly fragile, wandering alien woman be the lost princess, a figure of legend and hope, now hidden in plain sight among the chaos of a human city? His mind raced with questions, but one certainty became clear. He had to find her again. He had to be careful, but he could not ignore what he had discovered. Aurelia, resting against the cold brick wall of the alley, felt a strange stirring in her mind as well. Though she had not known Callan's thoughts or intentions, some invisible thread connected them. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but sometimes that unpredictability could be the difference between life and death. Somehow she sensed that this one human might be different from the rest. The night deepened, and the city seemed to breathe around her. The distant hum of hovercars, the clatter of feet on metal grates, the soft whine of electricity through neon signs. It all formed a rhythm she could follow, a rhythm that allowed her to navigate the urban labyrinth with a strange, practiced ease. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other end of the alley. Aurelia froze, her senses sharpening. A group of low-level scavengers had cornered a small delivery drone, attempting to strip it for parts. She stayed hidden, holding her breath until the danger passed. It was a minor incident, but it reminded her that this city, though teeming with life, was also a place where one misstep could mean disaster. Callan, still at his workshop, felt an odd mixture of excitement and fear. If he could reach her, warn her, help her, perhaps he could change the course of events that had kept her in hiding for so long. He prepared a small pack with food, basic medical supplies, and a few tools, enough to survive on the streets for a day or two. Tonight, he decided he would find her again. He moved swiftly through the crowded streets, relying on memory and instinct to trace her path. Eventually, he found her at the same alley, crouched near the dumpster, eyes closed in rest. "Aurelia," he whispered softly, careful not to startle her. Her eyes opened slowly, shimmering in the dim light. "You again?" she asked, her voice cautious but not hostile. "Yes," he said, kneeling a respectful distance away. "I know who you are, or I think I do." Her gaze sharpened, a mixture of fear and disbelief. You know," Callan nodded. "I think you're the lost princess, Princess Aurelia of Calithia." For a long moment she said nothing, simply staring at him as if weighing the truth of his words against the reality she had lived for so long. Finally she whispered, "Then I am not safe. They are looking for me." Callan reached into his pack and offered her some food again, this time insisting. "Then we'll keep you safe. I'll help you. You don't have to do this alone." Aurelia hesitated, then accepted the food. The small gesture, simple and human, meant more than words. In that quiet, rain-soaked alley, two unlikely allies met. One human, one lost princess, united by curiosity, courage, and the fragile hope that even in a galaxy filled with chaos, small acts of kindness could change everything. And high above, the bounty hunter watched, silent and patient, waiting for the moment to strike. The night had only begun. The next morning, the neon glow of Harbor City had faded into the soft, pale light of dawn, but the city was still alive. Smoke rose from street grills, and the distant hum of hovercars created a constant background noise. Aurelia had found a small corner of a deserted warehouse to rest in overnight, away from prying eyes. She sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor, her head bowed, trying to recall fragments of her past. Faces, places, voices, everything was hazy, like a dream she couldn't fully remember. She had lived on the streets for years, hiding from anyone who might recognize her, and yet, in the heart of the city, she felt the faintest spark of safety for the first time in decades. Callan arrived at the warehouse just as the sun began to rise, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His heart pounded with anticipation and concern. He had spent the night thinking about her, analyzing every movement, every gesture. Something about her wasn't ordinary. Something about her demanded attention, even if the world ignored her. He approached quietly, trying not to startle her. "Aurelia," he called softly, stepping into the faint morning light that filtered through broken windows. Her head lifted slowly, eyes wide but wary. "You again," she said. Her voice carried a mixture of caution and relief. "Why do you keep finding me?" "I want to help you," Callan said honestly. He set his backpack down and opened it, revealing a few supplies, fresh food, water, and a small medkit. "You can't survive out here alone. You need someone to watch your back, someone who understands something about your situation." Aurelia studied him carefully, then nodded slightly. I am not used to this. Humans do not usually care." Callan smiled softly. "Maybe some do." She accepted a piece of food, nibbling carefully. The simple act felt strange and comforting at the same time. It was rare that anyone offered her kindness without expectation, and even rarer that she accepted it. She realized slowly that she might trust this human, though trust was something she had long forgotten. After a quiet moment, Callan reached into his pack and pulled out a small portable scanner he had modified himself. "I saw something last night," he said, trying to be cautious. "A symbol on your robes. I think it means something important, something very old. Can I see it?" Aurelia hesitated, then carefully rolled back the edge of her hood. A faint emblem, almost faded, glimmered on the inside of her robe, a delicate pattern of intertwining lines, glowing softly as if it carried a memory of its own. Callan's breath caught when he saw it. "That's it," he whispered. "I've seen this symbol before." "It's from the Calithian Empire." Aurelia stiffened. The words felt heavy, carrying memories she had long tried to bury. "Calithia, I cannot." Callan shook his head gently. "I'm not here to force you. I think I know who you are, and I think people are looking for you." "Dangerous people," her eyes widened. "They are always looking, they do not forgive, they do not forget." She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the fear she had carried for decades. "I fled, I ran, I hid, I survived by being nothing, by being invisible." "And you've done well," Callan said, "but you're not invisible to me, and I can help you." For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she allowed him to scan the symbol. He held the scanner above the robe, watching as the faint lines glowed brighter under the device's soft light. The emblem responded to the scanner, revealing a hidden energy signature that marked it as royal, an identity signal centuries old, almost forgotten by time itself. Callan's eyes widened. "Aurelia, this is real. You are the princess, the lost princess." Her lips trembled, and for the first time in decades, a tear slid down her cheek. I cannot be." Her voice cracked. "I am nothing now, a shadow, a beggar. No one remembers me." Callan knelt beside her. "People may not remember yet, but that doesn't change who you are. You are alive. You survived when so many gave up. That matters more than anything." Aurelia's eyes lingered on him, searching, questioning, unsure if she could allow herself to hope. Humans were strange creatures. Their minds moved quickly, their hands could build and destroy, their hearts could surprise even the most cautious alien. She felt something stirring, something she hadn't felt in years, perhaps hope, perhaps trust. They spoke quietly for hours, sharing small fragments of her past and the world as it was now. Callan listened attentively, asking questions but never pushing too far. He learned that the Calithian Empire had been a peaceful civilization, devoted to science, art, and diplomacy. He learned that Aurelia had been the youngest princess, trained not for war but for wisdom and leadership. And he learned, finally, why she had fled. A war that had consumed her home, leaving her family lost or dead, and herself forced into exile. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of the small corner where history quietly unfolded. But not everyone was oblivious. From the rooftops, the bounty hunter moved silently, tracking every motion of the alley with mechanical precision. Every step Aurelia took, every word she spoke was noted. "They are too close," the hunter muttered. "The city does not see her, but I do. She must be captured. The galaxy will tremble when she is found." Meanwhile, Callan prepared for the next step. He could not allow her to stay in the open, not with someone so dangerous hunting her. He gathered supplies, reinforced a few weak points in the warehouse, and set up simple alarms, enough to alert him if anyone approached. Aurelia watched his preparations with quiet fascination. Humans were strange. Fragile, yes, but persistent and clever. They did not rely on raw power to survive. They relied on thinking, observing, planning. Somehow she felt safer with him than she had in years. "Callan," she said softly, "why do you care? Why do you risk yourself for me?" He paused, considering the question. "Because you deserve it. Because no one should have to survive alone in a world that doesn't see them. And because humans sometimes can do more than they think. We can change things. Small acts can ripple into big ones. I think you deserve someone like that on your side." Aurelia's gaze softened, a flicker of gratitude passing through her features. "Then I will trust you, but we must be careful. They will not forgive a mistake." As the day moved forward, the city's noise grew louder. Delivery drones zipped through the streets, hovercars streaked overhead, and merchants shouted over each other to attract customers. The bustle masked their presence, providing them cover even as danger closed in. Callan decided it was time to move. The warehouse, though safe for now, was too visible. He packed Aurelia's few belongings into his bag and prepared to navigate the city's hidden passages, abandoned maintenance tunnels, narrow alleys, and service corridors that few humans used. It was a dangerous journey, but he had learned enough about the city to move with speed and discretion. Aurelia followed silently, trusting him despite the fear that lingered in her chest. Every corner could hide danger, every passerby could be a threat. Yet for the first time in decades, she felt a small measure of confidence. She was no longer completely alone. They moved through the shadows, slipping past crowds and avoiding security drones. Callan's knowledge of the city's underbelly proved invaluable. He knew where sensors were weak, where cameras had blind spots, and where shortcuts could be found. Aurelia marveled at his ability to think ahead, to anticipate problems before they happened. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was also a kind of brilliance. The bounty hunter, meanwhile, remained relentless. From the rooftops, they observed Callan and Aurelia moving through the city, calculating trajectories and predicting actions. "Do not underestimate them," the hunter murmured. "The human may be clever, but the target cannot escape." Callan paused briefly in a darkened alley to check their route. Aurelia crouched beside him, listening to the distant hum of the city. "How far to safety?" she asked quietly. "Not far," he replied. "But far enough that we can plan our next move. We need to stay ahead. One mistake and we could lose everything." They moved again, faster now, slipping into the network of service tunnels that ran beneath the city. The air was cool and smelled faintly of oil and dust. Aurelia felt a strange sense of relief. Down here, away from the crowds and lights, she could breathe. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to relax slightly, trusting the human who had chosen to care for her. Hours passed as they navigated the tunnels, stopping only briefly to rest and eat. Callan shared small stories of his own life, his family, and the city above. Aurelia listened, absorbing every word. Humans were strange creatures, so fragile yet so resilient. She began to understand that sometimes strength was not measured in power or skill, but in courage and heart. And as they emerged from the tunnels into a quiet, hidden courtyard on the edge of the city, both knew that the real challenges had only just begun. The galaxy had not forgotten Aurelia, and danger lurked closer than they realized. But with human ingenuity and compassion guiding her path, the lost princess had a chance to survive, and perhaps even reclaim her destiny. The hidden courtyard smelled of damp stone and fresh rain. The pale morning light filtered through broken panels of an old maintenance roof, casting thin lines of sunlight across the cracked tiles. Aurelia sat on the edge of a low wall, her hands wrapped around her knees, while Callan adjusted the straps of his backpack. He scanned the perimeter carefully, checking for any sign of the bounty hunter or other threats. "You think they're still following us?" Aurelia asked quietly, her voice a mixture of fear and curiosity. Callan shook his head, though his eyes betrayed concern. "I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. Someone is definitely looking for you. Whoever it is, they're patient. That makes them dangerous." Aurelia nodded. Patience had been the only thing keeping her alive for decades. She knew the importance of waiting, of hiding, of being invisible. And yet something about this human was different. Callan did not rely on hiding alone. He acted. He planned. He thought ahead. That, she realized slowly, was why he had been able to find her again. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they could also be brilliant in ways she had never seen in her own people. Callan crouched beside her, pointing toward a narrow service tunnel that led out of the courtyard. "This way." It's safer, and it will put distance between us and anyone who might be following. Aurelia rose, brushing the dust from her robes, and followed him. She moved cautiously, every step measured. She had learned that any moment of carelessness could cost her life. Yet as they progressed through the tunnel, a strange sense of relief began to grow inside her. She wasn't alone. This human had chosen to care. That small choice, simple as it was, meant more than she could explain. The tunnel twisted and turned, dark and narrow. The faint hum of electricity ran along the walls, and the air smelled of oil and rust. Callan led the way, pausing at junctions to listen for any unusual sounds. Aurelia stayed close behind, her hands brushing the cold metal walls for guidance. Suddenly, a soft clatter echoed from ahead. Callan froze, signaling for her to do the same. Aurelia's heart raced. Even the smallest sound could reveal their position. She strained her ears, listening. "Nothing," Callan whispered after a moment, though his eyes scanned every shadow. "Probably just the wind or a small maintenance bot. Keep moving, but stay alert." They continued, each step deliberate, until they reached a small ladder leading to a maintenance platform above the city streets. Callan climbed first, Aurelia following cautiously. As they emerged into the light, the city spread out below them in a chaotic tapestry of neon signs, hover cars, and crowded streets. From this height, they could see the flow of people and traffic, the rhythm of the city's life. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Callan paused, crouching behind a low barrier to observe. "We're going to need a plan if we want to keep you safe," he said. "We can't stay hidden forever. Someone will notice you eventually." Aurelia's eyes flickered with worry. "What kind of plan? I do not have weapons." "I do not have allies, I have nothing." Callan shook his head. "You have more than you think. You survived for decades. That alone shows strength and intelligence. And now you have me. That counts for something." Aurelia studied him, a faint flicker of trust forming. Humans were strange. Fragile, yes, but also capable of surprising courage. He was not a soldier, not a trained fighter, but he had found her, and he was willing to protect her. That mattered, perhaps more than anything. As they moved along the platform, Callan explained his plan. They would navigate through the city using rooftops and hidden passages, staying above ground to avoid crowded streets and sensors. They would create diversions if necessary and always be ready to change direction. Above all, they needed to stay unpredictable, because that was the only way to stay ahead of someone who hunted with patience and precision. Hours passed as they moved through the labyrinth of rooftops. Aurelia's legs ached, but she pushed herself to keep up. The city stretched endlessly, a maze of metal and glass, but Callan's knowledge made it manageable. He pointed out weak sections of security grids, blind spots in surveillance, and shortcuts through maintenance corridors. Aurelia listened carefully, absorbing every detail. Humans were resourceful, clever. They could take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. She began to understand why Callan had been able to find her and why he could keep her alive. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, they reached a small rooftop overlooking a quiet courtyard. Callan crouched beside Aurelia and pointed. "We can rest here for a while. I've rigged a few simple alarms on the lower levels. If anyone approaches, we'll know." Aurelia settled onto the rooftop, her eyes scanning the city below. "Do you think they will find me anyway?" Callan shook his head, though his expression was serious. "They might, but we'll be ready." That's the difference between surviving and being caught. Humans survive because we think ahead, because we plan, because we don't give up. For the first time in decades, Aurelia felt a sense of hope. Not complete, not certain, but fragile and real. She had survived countless dangers, hidden from enemies, lived without family, without allies. And now, for the first time, someone had chosen to help her. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a faint sound, a soft mechanical whir, followed by the clatter of boots on metal. Callan froze, signaling for her to stay low. Aurelia's heart raced. The bounty hunter had found them. "They're close," Callan whispered. "Stay calm, follow my lead." From a nearby rooftop, the bounty hunter observed them, motionless and calculating. "They are clever," the hunter muttered. "But cleverness alone will not save her." Callan moved quickly, whispering instructions to Aurelia. They slipped along the rooftops, using shadows and structural beams to hide their movements. Aurelia followed, her body tense, her mind alert. Every step was critical. Every pause could mean detection. As they moved, Callan created a diversion. He activated a small drone he had modified himself, sending it buzzing across the rooftops to draw attention. The drone emitted a series of bright flashes and noises, catching the bounty hunter's attention momentarily. Aurelia watched in awe. Humans were unpredictable, clever. The drone moved like a phantom, confusing their pursuer just long enough for them to gain distance. She realized that this human's ingenuity was as powerful as any weapon. The bounty hunter cursed under their breath, momentarily distracted by the drone. "Clever human," they muttered, "but not clever enough." Callan and Aurelia continued their escape, moving toward a series of interconnected service tunnels that would lead them out of the city center. The tunnels were dark and narrow, but safe. For now. Inside the tunnels, Aurelia allowed herself a deep breath. You are clever," she said quietly. "Humans, they think in ways that others cannot." Callan smiled faintly, adjusting his pack. "Sometimes thinking is all you need. Brains over brawn, that's what keeps us alive." They moved in silence for a while, the sound of their footsteps echoing softly. Aurelia's mind wandered. For years, she had lived in fear, hiding from everyone. Now she was learning that strength came in different forms. Courage did not always mean fighting. Sometimes it meant trusting, observing, and acting at the right moment. As they neared a junction, a faint vibration ran through the tunnel floor. Callan's eyes narrowed. Someone's coming. "Quickly this way." He led her down a narrower side passage, a route few would notice, even in the tunnels. The bounty hunter entered the main tunnel moments later, scanning the shadows with precision. "They cannot hide forever," the hunter murmured. "The target will be mine." Callan and Aurelia emerged from the side passage into a small, abandoned maintenance room. Dust and debris covered the floor, and the faint light from a cracked ceiling panel illuminated the space. Callan quickly secured the entrance with a simple barricade of loose pipes and metal panels. Aurelia leaned against the wall, her breathing heavy. We are not safe yet," she said. Callan shook his head. "No, we're not, but we've gained time, and time is what we need. Time to plan, to prepare, to stay ahead." Aurelia studied him, her mind working through a mixture of fear and admiration. Humans were strange creatures. Fragile, yes, but brilliant, resourceful, and relentless. Perhaps that was why she had survived so long, even alone. And perhaps that was why now she had a chance. Not just to survive, but to reclaim what had been lost. As the sun set and the city lights flickered on, casting long shadows through the broken windows of the maintenance room, Aurelia realized something she had not felt in decades. Hope. Not certainty, not safety, but hope. Callan sat beside her, quietly checking his makeshift tools and supplies. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we start moving again, but tonight we rest, we recover, and we prepare for whatever comes next." Aurelia nodded, feeling the weight of her past and the fragility of her present. But she also felt something new, something she had not known for a long time. Trust, courage, and perhaps most importantly, the knowledge that she was not alone. And high above, somewhere beyond the reach of light and shadow, the bounty hunter waited, patient, calculating. Relentless, the game was far from over. The night air was cool and heavy with the smell of rain-soaked streets. From their hidden maintenance room, Aurelia and Callan could hear the faint hum of the city above, the endless movement of hovercars, footsteps, and the distant calls of merchants packing up for the night. For a moment, the world felt calm, almost peaceful. But both of them knew better. Danger had not disappeared. It was only waiting. Callan studied the map he had drawn from memory and datapad records. The city was a maze of hidden routes, abandoned passages, and overlooked corridors, perfect for someone who needed to stay unseen. "We need to move soon," he said softly, glancing at Aurelia. "They are patient, but they are coming. The longer we wait, the closer they get." Aurelia nodded, pulling her hood over her head once more. "Then we go, I am ready." They moved carefully, slipping through the narrow tunnels that connected to the rooftops above. Each step was deliberate, each turn calculated. Aurelia's legs ached from the previous days climbing and running, but she forced herself forward. For the first time in decades, she felt a strange mixture of fear and purpose. She was not just running. She was moving toward something, toward life, toward reclaiming her destiny. From a high rooftop, the bounty hunter observed them, every movement noted with precision. "They are clever," the hunter muttered. "The human uses tricks, diversions, and shadows, but cleverness alone will not be enough. The princess will be mine." Callan led Aurelia across a series of rooftops, using narrow beams and hidden ledges. The city stretched endlessly around them, neon signs flickering, the hum of electricity constant in the air. Below, people moved through the streets, unaware of the drama unfolding above them. Suddenly, Callan stopped and signaled for Aurelia to crouch behind a ventilation shaft. From below, a patrol drone hovered, scanning the streets. Its sensors glowed red, sweeping methodically. "Stay still," Callan whispered. He pulled a small device from his pack and adjusted it, sending a quick pulse of interference toward the drone. The red glow flickered, then shifted off course as the drone's sensors became confused. Callan and Aurelia slipped past it, hearts pounding. Aurelia whispered, You are clever." Callan smiled faintly. "Humans have to be, it's how we survive." Hours passed as they navigated the city, moving through hidden passages, maintenance corridors, and seldom-used stairwells. Aurelia began to notice something about herself she had long forgotten: courage. Not the reckless kind, not the desperate kind born of fear alone, but a steady, determined courage that allowed her to move forward despite danger. She had survived alone for decades, but now, with a human at her side, that courage was sharpened and strengthened. Finally, they reached the edge of the city, a series of abandoned warehouses that formed a semi-isolated district. Callan paused, surveying the area. "This is where we make our stand," he said. "We cannot keep running forever. We need a plan to confront whoever comes for you and to survive." Aurelia nodded, her hands clenched into fists. "Then we do what must be done. I am ready." The night deepened. The city below grew quieter as the Ley Tower crowds thinned. Above them, the bounty hunter descended from the rooftops, landing silently in the shadows. The hunter's eyes glinted with anticipation, the long hunt nearing its climax. Callan quickly assessed the situation. He had improvised a series of simple but effective defenses. Loose wires rigged to trip alarms, small automated drones ready to distract, and environmental hazards in the warehouse. Weak beams that could be dropped, containers that could block or delay pursuit. Aurelia watched him prepare, amazement and trust growing within her. Humans may not have ancient power or royal lineage, she realized, but they had something equally important: quick thinking, courage, and ingenuity. The hunter stepped forward into the dim light, scanning for movement. "Come out, princess," the hunter said coldly. "You cannot hide forever." Aurelia stepped beside Callan, her voice steady despite the fear. "I am here," she said, "and I am not afraid." The hunter's eyes narrowed. "Bold but foolish, you will regret this." Callan gave Aurelia a small nod. "Follow my lead," he whispered. Then everything moved at once. Callan activated a small drone which zipped across the floor of the warehouse, flashing lights and making noise. The hunter's attention split instantly, drawn toward the distraction. At the same time, Callan triggered a series of simple traps. Loose crates toppled, creating barriers between them and the hunter, while thin wires activated small alarms, masking their true location. Aurelia watched, impressed, as the human's ingenuity unfolded. It was a dance of strategy, improvisation, and careful timing. Humans were unpredictable, and in that unpredictability lay strength. The hunter advanced, undeterred by the obstacles, but Callan had anticipated this. Using the shadows and narrow corridors, he guided Aurelia through the warehouse, moving quickly but deliberately. Every step was planned, every turn calculated. They moved like shadows themselves, unseen and unheard, even as the hunter closed in. Finally, they reached a small rooftop terrace above the warehouse district. From here, they could see the city stretched out in every direction, neon lights twinkling like distant stars. Callan paused, catching his breath, and looked at Aurelia. "This is it," he said. "We make the final move. We reveal who you are, not to the hunter, not to the city yet, but to the right people, allies, people who can protect you." Aurelia took a deep breath, feeling a strength she had not known she possessed. "I am ready," she said. "We do this together." Callan nodded. "Together." Using a portable transmitter, he broadcast a short message over a secure network that reached human and allied contacts throughout the city and nearby settlements. The message contained an image of the emblem, along with a simple identification: Princess Aurelia of Calithia, the lost heir of a destroyed empire, seeking protection and refuge. Within minutes, small groups of allies, humans and sympathetic aliens, began converging on the warehouse district, arriving quietly and efficiently. They blocked streets, guided Aurelia and Callan to safer paths, and used the city's chaos to their advantage. The bounty hunter realized too late that the game had changed. The hunter moved with precision, but the human's unpredictable strategy, combined with the sudden appearance of allies, created confusion. Traps, diversions, and clever misdirection left the hunter disoriented. Aurelia watched, all growing in her chest. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but brilliant. They used what they had, their minds, their courage, their ingenuity, to turn impossible situations into opportunities. She realized then that this unpredictability, this cleverness, was the greatest weapon she had ever seen. Callan guided her through the final stretch, moving past the last barriers and into a secured location where allies awaited. The bounty hunters' frustration was clear as they were forced to retreat, unable to reach their target. Aurelia turned to Callan, her voice trembling with gratitude. You saved me. You all saved me." Callan shook his head, smiling. "No, you saved yourself too. You survived, you trusted, and you kept moving forward. I just helped guide the path." For the first time in decades, Aurelia felt free. Not entirely safe, not entirely unafraid, but free. Free to begin reclaiming her life, her identity, her destiny. She looked at the humans and allies around her and realized that their courage, their cleverness, and their unexpected kindness had made this possible. News of her survival and revelation spread quickly throughout the city and beyond. The once-forgotten princess was now seen and acknowledged. People remembered. Allies rallied. The galaxy began to stir with the news that Princess Aurelia of Calithia had returned. Aurelia chose Callan as her human ambassador, recognizing the truth she had discovered. Humans were not just clever or brave. They were capable of reshaping destinies. Their ingenuity and courage had given her the chance to reclaim her life and her empire. As dawn broke over Harbor City, Aurelia stood on the rooftop of the warehouse, looking out over the glowing streets below. She was no longer a shadow among the crowd. She was seen. She was alive. She was the lost princess. And beside her stood a human who had believed in her when no one else did. A human who had shown her that sometimes the smallest acts of courage, intelligence, and kindness could change the fate of entire worlds. The galaxy had forgotten her once, but it would not forget again. And humans, unpredictable, clever, and courageous, had ensured that her story would continue. For Aurelia, the long years of hiding, fear, and uncertainty were over. The journey had been dangerous, the enemies relentless, but through it all, she had discovered the truth. Humans could be heroes in ways that no one had imagined. And with that truth, she knew that together, they could face anything the galaxy had to offer.